My name's Meg Jones. I'm a reporter from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. I'm here at Southern Wisconsin Veteran Cemetery in Union Grove, Wisconsin. And I'm here, I came to visit somebody that I got a chance to meet 5 years ago when I was an embedded reporter in Iraq. It was my fourth trip to Iraq in 2008, and before I went I thought it'd be kind of interesting to do a story on one of the millions and millions of care packages that are traveling from the United States to war zones. So I had contacted the Family Readiness Coordinator from a Marine Reserve unit from Milwaukee that I was going to be embedded with, told her what I'd hoped to do, and she hooked me up with a woman by the name of Kristen Nelson, who was putting together a care package and was going to be mailing it to her husband of 1 year named Rick in a few days. So I met with Kristen, and a photographer came along with me, and we met her at the Target down in Kenosha. Went with her as she shopped for her supplies, and then we went back to her apartment where she was making chocolate chip cookies, and it was just a story out of many that I was planning to do while I was in Iraq. So we were with her as she boxed up her care package and sent it on to Iraq. And then when I got with the unit in Iraq, I met her husband Rick and wrote a bunch of stories about this particular unit, and waited very patiently for the package to arrive, but unfortunately it didn't while I was with the unit. And I even extended my stay for a couple of days just hoping that the package would arrive, but it didn't show up while I was there. And in the meantime I had to move on to other places in Iraq with other Wisconsin troops. So unfortunately I couldn't write the story, and that sort of thing happens. Stories fall through. Sometimes you just find out about stories at the last minute. So I called Kristen, or sent her an email and said, I'm sorry, this just didn't work out, but I'd gotten a chance to meet Rick and spend some time with him. And he eventually did get the box, but by that time I was already gone. And then a short time after that, Rick Nelson was killed in Iraq. He was blown up by an IED. And so I ended up writing a story, but it wasn't the story that I meant. It wasn't a story about a care package. It was a story about this couple that loved each other dearly. And and when I got back home, Rick was already buried out here at Southern Wisconsin Veteran Cemetery. So I came out here to pay my respects. And back then, this is 5 years ago, he was the first in a row of graves that hadn't yet been filled in, and they've now been filled in 5 years later. So I wrote the story about Rick Nelson, but I also wrote a shorter story for a package that we always run on Memorial Day called We Remember. And these are packages that I've written, special sections that we've written every year since 2004, and the numbers of people that we write about, and they're short stories with photos, and they're stories that focus on the person's life, not how they died. And every year I'd have a certain number of people from Wisconsin who had passed away in Iraq and Afghanistan since the previous Memorial Day, but this year there are none, and that's greatly relieving to me. I feel this great weight off my shoulders that I'm not writing about people, Wisconsin folks that have passed away in Iraq and Afghanistan. The Iraq War is done, but Afghanistan still continues, and so I came out here again to pay my respects to Rick Nelson, who is a sweet guy, funny, a guy who was so in tune with himself. Loved his wife, loved the Marines. I just pictured him coming back home and having a family and growing old with his wife Kristen, but that wasn't to be. Every time that I go to a military funeral, I watch the taps and 21 gun salute, and I watch the flag being folded, and always the same thing is said when the flag is folded and presented to the family. And they always say, with thanks of a grateful nation. And I can say that I too am thankful and grateful.